The Indigo Disk is out, and I'm going to focus only on the plot and not the technical aspects, though I will say I do enjoy the difficulty spike compared to the base game. We arrive at Blueberry Academy, where we are greeted by Lacey of the Elite Four, who is revealed to be the daughter of Clay. No, really. Clay's never mentioned by name, but you can get the implication based off of her escadrille and the fact that she's from Nimbasa City, aka a hop and a skip away from Driftvale City. After some shenanigans, we meet Drayton, who essentially talks the Blueberry Elite Four and Champion into allowing the player character to face the Blueberry League. After all, you're an exchange student, not a true student, therefore, you're going to need some permissions to get in. Drayton knows that Kieran isn't going to pass up this challenge. Why is Drayton even obsessed with beating Kieran in the first place? Well, it's because Kieran has turned the League Club into what we call a toxic work environment. His obsession with strength manifests in ways that are both self-destructive and, well, toxic. Crispin comments the League Club is growing more somber and less fun. Amaris wants to beat him because of her friendship with Carmine, and she finds his psychosis creepy. Drayton knows very well he cannot beat Kieran. After all, Kieran is the one who dethroned him, so he hopes the player character could restore Kieran's sanity by beating him. After losing to the player character, Kieran doesn't exactly snap out of his mania, rather he doubles down. He is more than happy to capture Terapagos in Area Zero. After all, he invested so much into beating the player character that he's not about to give up, especially since his original plot failed so horribly. He's the one who captures Terapagos in a Master Ball. And then he follows Briar's brilliant idea of energizing the terrestrial piece, which ends up about as well as you'd expect. After that debacle gets solved, he accepts that he won't ever be the protagonist and gives up on his mania. And then he kisses the player character. No, he doesn't actually kiss the player character. This is about where the story ends. So, what did I think about the story? It's a mixed bag. On one hand, I do like the relationship between the Elite Four and Champion. Even though we spend very little time with them in general, we do get a nice impression out of them. Lacey, for example, really doesn't like bringing up the fact that her father is, Clay of Driftvale City, mainly because I think she doesn't want to be seen as a Nepo baby, but that's just me drawing a conclusion based off of how she acts. Despite the stoic exterior, Amaris is the most overtly compassionate one, and she's actually Carmine's friend. I really expect Lacey to be Carmine's friend or something like that. Drayton kinda surprised me a bit. I thought he was not going to be as important to the story as he is, but he's the one who cooks up the scheme to take down Kieran. And finally, Kieran is a wonderfully nutty fruitcake. The ones who get the shortest end of the stick among the relationships between the Elite Four and Champion and everyone else are Carmine, who spends half the time being terrified of Kieran or just being snarky at Drayton before going back to her dynamic with Kieran from the Teal Mask, which is disappointing. I did want to see her have a bit more time with the scary emo Kieran. Such as in Black and White, where Alder and Sharon basically exposit your thoughts since this is an ideological conflict, not personal one. For the Sun and Moon games, this method doesn't work as well since it so much emphasizes the relationship between Lily, Gladian, and Lusamine, which really doesn't work with the silent protagonist who is just muscle, but it can kind of work. At least you have a set of relationships you could latch onto and enjoy the story that way. Except here in the Teal Mask and the Indigo Disk, you really don't have a relationship between characters which you can latch onto easily. Obviously, your relationship with Kieran isn't going to be interesting because dialogue trees don't exist in this game, and you stay a silent doll the entire time. The Elite Four members are briefly this, but their relationship with Kieran before and after the whole loss to the player character aren't really explored in depth. Come to think of it, Indigo Disc never really explores what the League Club was like before Kieran took it over, except it was more fun, which it's really just a matter of showing versus telling, and it really would have been good to at least show us what the League Club was like before Kieran took it over. Drayton is probably the only one who has the most plot relevance, which is odd, considering Carmine is right there, and that is Kieran's sister, who basically, Drayton's role is to spell out the moral of the story, which is hilarious, but at the same time, he just peters off when everyone goes into Area Zero. The people who actually go into Area Zero are basically just you, Briar, Carmine, and Kieran, which is disappointing. You'd really expect the friends from the base game to actually be there, but they're not there. And speaking of Briar and disappointing, man, she's not evil. Sadly, she isn't evil. I wish she was evil. She's just stupid. That's stupid. Seriously, Pokemon, let's bring back a real classic bad guy who you want to feed to a Hydreigon because they're so despicable. Enough with these incompetent heroes like Chairman Rose and now Briar. At least Sada and Tura were at least evil or at least did something horrific. But those are just my thoughts. Please consider liking, subscribing, tipping the channel on Ko-fi. Perhaps you have your own comments to add. Well, let me know in the comments section. This is Cyril signing off.